Hello everybody, it's Ezio 117 here, and yes, I am still alive. However, this is going to be my last video in a good long while, as I currently haven't really been in the mood to be making YouTube videos, and that kind of explains why I haven't been releasing a lot of stuff as of recent. And it's also because I'm also very busy with school, and I'm going to be moving to a different school as of next year, so I need to like focus on that. So that's why I haven't really had the time to make YouTube videos. However, because I made a top 10 list last year of albums I really liked that came out in 2018, I thought I would do the same for this year. So that's what I'm gonna do. Before we go on with the list, I'm just going to show you some of my honorable mentions that couldn't make it on the list, sadly, but I still really liked. And I
will love be my destiny. Destiny, I'm lost. All of my life, but no matter the things I do, never get over it.
So without further ado, let's get on with our 10th spot.
You make my earthquake. Oh, make my earthquake.
So Tyler, the Creator, is an artist I just got into this year. My opinion on Tyler, the Creator, is that I find his earlier stuff to be offensive and poorly written and not engaging and way too edgy. But like as soon as he released Flower Boy, that's where we really got to see his more human side. We still saw a bit of his more edgy. We still saw like his edginess on songs like I Ain't Got Time or Who That Boy. But with Flower Boy, that's where he like really like matured. And on Igor, we really get to see him like continue that maturity. Not nearly as well, mind you, but I do think he does a very, very competent job of maturing himself on his 5th studio effort. Like the hype for this album was unbelievable. People were going on about how this was the best album of the year and how this is the best Tyler album. And yeah, I still prefer Flower Boy, but this album is still very good. It's got great production, some very, very strong songs like What's Good and Gone Gone Thank You. The concept is very well realized. The whole thing is just a very enjoyable ride. An album that I personally don't think is a top 5 of the year, but I still think is worth checking out. Absolutely.
Shoot a messenger, string 'em up. She's a 10+10, not enough.
By far my pick for hip hop album of the year. Nothing Great About Britain by SLOWTHAI is raw, aggressive, passionate, and just a great social commentary on the state of Britain. We really get to see SLOWTHAI's frustration and anger with Britain throughout this album through great lyrics, a unique voice, and some very, very catchy songs. All these things are especially prevalent in album highlights like Doorman, Inglorious, Missing, as well as Northampton's Child. If you haven't listened to this album, I suggest that you do, because while people are going on about how Little SIMZ or JPEG Mafia have the best hip-hop albums of the year, I would say SLOWTHAI gets my spot for best hip-hop album of the year. Schlagenheim by Black Midi is by far the most unique rock album that came out this year. And while yes, this album does take a lot of influences from bands like Pere Ubu and Talking Heads and Slint and so on, I still haven't heard a lot of math rock albums, if any, that are this quirky. It's nice to hear some math rock this decade that is quirky and fun and doesn't take itself seriously. Because most of the math rock we have been getting as of recent have been very soft and have been very flowery. And if it isn't very soft, it tends to be way too serious and dark. And while this album does have a sense of darkness to it, it does it with a lot of quirkiness and humor, and that's why I really like it. Just so you guys know, this album is definitely not for everyone, as the vocals on this album are totally ridiculous. like the vocalist in this band. I know there's two vocalists, but I'm talking about the main vocalist. He practically sounds like a cartoon character throughout, and I can definitely see that not being everyone's taste. But I personally like it because it creates a very nice juxtaposition uh, with the very like skeletal music. So I would definitely highly recommend Schlagenheim. And yes, it does wear off its influences, and it's not quite as like revolutionary and unique as the press is calling it. But I still think it's a undeniably well-made rock album.
Good family values.
So now I know what you're thinking. What the hell does an album with the name of Dorkcore 101 and with the cover of a character from Ed, Edd n Eddy doing on this list? And I thought the same until I listened to the album. This album is just nuts. It is nuts in the fact that it's 4 hours long. Legit, it's a 4 hour long album. And the fact that despite being a 4 hour long album that, no joke, focuses only on the character Kevin from Ed, Edd n Eddy, it flies by very fast. And while this is a joke album, you could tell that the two guys who made this were really passionate about this whole album. It's an album that mostly like focuses on punk and indie and noise rock, but it also tries to go into like many other different styles like sea shanties and ska. There's even like podcasts throughout and noise, as well as metal. It's an album that is, while it can be a challenging listen for some, for me it went by very fast. This is an album I only recommend to those who are willing to sit for a 4 hour album about Ed, Edd n Eddy. But it's an album I highly recommend because it's a very fun, very passionate, and undeniably very, very well made album. This is my first exposure to the progressive rock outfit, the T Club, and man, what a very good starting point this is. You know, it's sad when this is a better prog album than LEPROUS' prog album that came out this year. I still like Pitfalls, but yeah, this is a way better prog album. So in this album, it's mostly a folkier kind of prog sound, while also like mixing in some 80s synth influences, as well as some rockier elements too. And I must say, I really love the sound of this album. It's very crisp. I like how the acoustic guitars sound, and it's overall just very pleasant. The album also has fantastic vocal work. There's some great songs throughout. The big highlight of this album for me would have to be If I Mean When, which is a song I've heard before this album. So at least I knew one song from the T Club before going into this. But yeah, it's a very beautiful song. It's just a very well written progressive rock album in the 2010s. Most progressive rock albums tend to be overly derivative and uninteresting. However, this is an exception, and this is an album. I say this all the time, but this is an album I highly recommend. Caligula by Lingua Ignota is by far the scariest album I have ever listened to. And yes, it's not the scariest, like, music-related thing I have ever heard. That goes to Frankie Teardrop by Suicide. However, as an album, yeah, this is by far the scariest thing I've ever listened to. As a whole album, I prefer All Bitches Die by her, but I still think this album is a very well put together, scary, vocally amazing, and it's just intense. That's all I can say about this album, is that it is intense. You can feel the emotions that she is like showing throughout this album. This is not an album for the faint of heart, and I'm telling you, if you're going into this album, just expect it to be very dark and eerie. I didn't know what I was getting myself into going into this, so when I heard those screams and those haunting arrangements in Do You Doubt Me, Traitor, I knew I was getting into something very, very wicked. However, it's like I said, it's a superbly well-made album. So despite it being super scary and dark, it's an album that never that isn't just about shock value. It's also about well written songs. And hell, there's even some genuinely beautiful songs in the mix too. So yep, this is an album I definitely recommend for you guys, and it's definitely one hell of an intense adventure. A possible nominee for Best Album Title of the Year, the first Glass Beach album is colorful. It's a very colorful album. It's basically if Mr. Bungle took out all the sexual elements of their music and became an emo group. Yeah, that sounds like it should be bad, but these guys are more emo. They're more emo in spirit than they are musically. Musically, this album is like a mishmash of all kinds of different styles. It's basically like a Mr. Bungle album. Like it goes through all these different styles, and it usually within one song, but it never feels forced. This album also again has some great songs. Bedroom Community, as well as the first track, the title track, and Yoshi's Island. It's an album that is very colorful and enjoyable and fun. This is an album that I think is very overlooked, and I think people should listen to it right now. A Dawn to Fear is the new album by the atmospheric sludge metal band Cults of Luna. Their previous album, Mariner, is probably one of my all-time favorite albums of the decade, but this album is a very, very darn good follow-up. This album is just epic. It's epic in scope, the riffs are huge, the vocals, while they are growl vocals, which are pretty common in metal nowadays, I feel like these growl vocals have a lot more grit, a lot more, they just sound better than most growls I've heard in metal. And like the production of this thing, the drums hit hard, the guitars have just the way they just punch you whenever there's like huge riffs coming in. And then there's the songs like Silent Men and Nightwalkers and like Lights on the Hill. Like Jesus, these songs just crushing. And yes, like I said, this is not even close to being as good as Mariner. This is still a really, really worthy follow-up. And I would just say this, you should just go listen to it. Screw Blood Incantation. This is the metal album of the year. By far my pick for progressive pop album of the year definitely goes to Air Nini by HAKUSHI Hasegawa. A jazz-influenced progressive pop album. When you first hear this album, you might just think this album is just a mess. It has a lot of dissonance, a lot of crazy jazziness going on, weird, uncommon time signatures flying around, odd vocals. Like, at first you might think this album is trash, but like, the more you listen to it, the more you just get entranced by the chaotic nature of it all. It's catchy, the production is great, the vocals are by far the weakest aspect, but I think they blend in nicely with the chaoticness, and the songs are just super memorable, like Only You and Evil Things, as well as I Can See Mountains. Overall, this is an album that, while at first may turn you off, it definitely is rewarding with multiple listens. Absolutely. All right, now we are now getting into what I think is the best album of the year, the album that made the most impact on me this year, an album that I'll be cherishing for the rest of my life, and that I can definitely see becoming a future classic. My number one spot goes to
Try to leave it all behind.
This album. Where do I even start with this masterpiece? It is produced wonderfully. The vocals just have so much feel and just sound amazing. The songs are some of the best pop songs of the decade. I mean, Andromeda and A Lot's Gonna Change and Everyday. God, it's like, and those are like free, and those songs are right next to each other. Jesus. And what is also really impressive about this album is that Wise Blood takes an old forgotten genre, in this case 70s singer-songwriter, and she not only does the genre justice by not ruining it, but she also makes an album that is better than anything I've heard in the 70s singer-songwriter genre. Like, that's how impressive this album is. The album also really flows well. Every song has a purpose. There's no filler throughout. And it's just overall just a wonderful album. Not only the best album of the year, but it's close to being some of the best albums this decade. This album is just a masterpiece. So there we go, that was my top 10 albums of 2019 list. Do you guys agree or disagree? Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the bell and yada yada yada. And guys, have a happy new year. We're now going into a new decade, and I'm excited to see what this new decade has to offer. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you to next year and a new decade, and as well as next time. Peace.